Have you ever thought, I just wish I knew what to do with my life? I just wish I knew why I was here. Today's message is going to teach you how you can start walking towards your purpose, even if you don't know all of the details quite yet. Stick around. Hey YouTube, my name is Drew. I have the privilege and honor of being the pastor of a church called Risen Church that meets near Richmond, Virginia, and I'm so glad to be sharing this message with you today. Let's get right to it. You are good at some stuff, and you're bad at a lot of stuff. That's okay. You love doing some things, and you hate doing other things. That's okay too. You're passionate about some things, and you're less passionate about other things. You were born in one decade, in one country, in one economic state, into one family, and not any others. And I don't know if you've ever wondered this, but personally I wonder, why though? Why is all of that stuff true about me? What am I supposed to do with everything I've been given in my life? Now, if you haven't watched our previous episode, I would encourage you to watch it. It's linked in the description. It's called Our Options Are Limited, and it really is about how we can discover pretty quickly that what we're here for is kind of obvious whenever we start to weigh things out, that our options are kind of limited. There is a bit of a path that becomes obvious. Today I want to talk about, what do you do once you have actually identified that path? Once we've actually considered and figured out, okay, it's kind of obvious, this is the direction, this is the trajectory, this is the path for me. Now what do I do next? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say goodbye and have a good day, stay warm and eat well. But then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? And the answer is, well, none. That does no good. And this is perhaps the most overlooked aspect of any discussion that we've ever had on individual pursuit of purpose. Most of us have some kind of idea what we're here to do, even if we insist that that's not true. We begin to ask the questions about the obvious path that's laid out for us, and we begin to discover, oh, well, I kind of have some idea. It's not like I could do anything. I'm only saying that the truth is that we don't struggle with that part of the discussion nearly as much as we like to think we do, or like to convince others that we think we do. We can see a path. And maybe it's not as clear as it is in the pictures that we have for this sermon graphic. Maybe there's some weeds in the path. Maybe there's some obstructions in the path. Maybe it's not as obvious as it appears here, but there is a path, and most of us kind of know what that is. But I would encourage you to consider that most of the time, when we struggle with purpose, when we struggle to understand our why though, the real issue is not that we don't know what to do, it is that we simply aren't doing what we know to do. Now, to be fair, I don't know you. I don't know your struggles. I don't know your issues. I don't know anything about you. I only know me, and I know some of what I believe the scriptures say is true. And it would appear that in my life and in the pages of scripture that a recurring theme is knowing the right thing to do, but not doing it. Knowing the right actions to take, the right steps to take, and not taking them. And I'm telling you today that this is like coming to a fork in the road and stopping and saying, well, obviously I'm not supposed to go any further. Have you ever gone hiking with someone like that? Have you ever hiked like that? Where you would come to an obstruction in the path, there's a stick down in the road or some kind of fork in the road, and you just stop and you say, well, obviously we can go no further. Obviously there is no path from here forward. And that sounds kind of ridiculous and funny, and maybe you've been on a hiking trip with someone like that. But so often we treat our lives this way. We approach purpose this way. So I want to offer you a few challenges today. Three challenges to start walking towards your purpose. I don't know what it is. You may not know fully what it is, but I would suggest that you probably can at least see a path in front of you, and I want to challenge you to take some steps down that path. And here are the three things. Here's number one. Take the steps you know to take. Perhaps the biggest roadblock that any of us face to truly living out our why, though, to truly operating in our purpose, is not taking the steps we know to take, because there are some steps that we don't know about. There are always going to be some steps that you don't know about taking. There's always going to be some stuff that's too far ahead, too far down the road for you to know what to do about it yet. But I want to encourage you today, don't let that stop you from taking the steps that you do know to take. I totally identify with this inclination. I like to have a plan. I like to have a strategy. I like to know how things are going to play out and how they're going to work out. But it just doesn't work sometimes in life. When you drive at night, your headlights allow you to see 20 to 30 feet in front of you. That's not very far, but 30 feet in front of you is enough to drive across the entire country at night with nothing but headlights. You could pull over on the side of the road and say, I can't move forward because I can't see what happens at 31 feet, but no one does that. But we do that in our lives. We do that with our purposes. We pull over and say, I can't see what happens at 31 feet, so I can't move forward. I can only see 30 feet in front of me. But if you drove 1 foot, then you would see 31 feet in front of you. And this is how things work for us sometimes. Take the steps you know to take. You don't need to see the whole thing played out in order to take the steps that you know to take. And as you begin taking the steps that you know to take, you'll see a little further down the road. Number 2, this is a dangerous one to misunderstand, so please make sure that you catch what I'm saying here. Walking a wrong path for a little while isn't the end of the world. Now, when I say wrong path, I'm not talking about intentionally going down a sinful road, intentionally going down a destructive path, trying to wreck things, ruin your marriage, your work life, your financial life. I'm not suggesting that at all. We're just talking about purpose. We're just talking about the paths that seem somewhat obvious and somewhat clear that are laid out in front of us. That sometimes you don't know exactly what it is that you're supposed to do. You don't know exactly which path is right, and it's okay if you got it a little bit wrong. Sometimes that's necessary. One of the most valuable experiences that God can offer any of us in the pursuit of our purpose is the opportunity to walk a path that we think is the right one so that we can discover it's the wrong one. About 7 years ago now, I had the opportunity to travel the country and play a little bit of music. I got to go all the way across the country and back, and I got to live about 10 months of my life, was as long as the season lasted, where I was just a professional musician. I just did that. It's all I ever wanted. It's all I ever begged God for from the time I was about 15 years old. And then I had this season of time, and then I even got to go on this tour and sleep in a van and play shows every night and sightsee during the day and eat gas station food. And it was everything I ever hoped it would be. And guess what? I didn't like it. I didn't like it. As soon as I came home, I started applying for jobs. I started pursuing another path. I still loved playing music. I still loved traveling, but I didn't want that to be the only thing I did in life anymore. It was an opportunity to walk down a path that was the wrong path, and as a result of it, I got to see, I don't actually want that. If you're not willing to take a risk on a possible wrong path, you might just live one life thinking you'd be happier living another. And God loves you enough and cares about you enough to allow you the opportunity to walk down a wrong path. And you're going to walk down some wrong paths. I know for a fact you are. You already have. You already know this is true. Sometimes you're not going to have all the evidence that you need in order to choose the right path. You're just going to choose the best one based on the information provided. And you're going to discover it's the wrong path, and it's not going to be the end of the world. You're going to be able to backtrack, get back on the path, and go the other direction. And now know that that wasn't it. And number 3. Any walk with God is a good walk. Now, I know that sounds cliche and corny, but give me a minute. God is always on the move, and it is really difficult to maintain a relationship with Him when you stop moving forward. Now, I'm not saying He leaves you behind. I'm only saying that you lose your connection to Him when you stop moving. See, He's a creator and a builder and a fighter. And He is love, which is a verb. Everything about God is verb. He is movement and action and progress. And it's a bit of a contradiction to try to maintain a meaningful relationship and a meaningful connection with a moving God when you stop moving. it's actually kind of difficult to articulate why this is even true, other than just to say it's true. It's been true for me. It's been true for every person I've ever talked to about it, that when we struggle to connect with God, one of the first questions I've learned to ask people is, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing with your time? Where are you making progress? What are you excited about in life? And usually the answer is nothing, 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 nothing. And the reality is, when we're not progressing, we're not moving towards our purpose, when we're not walking down the path, it becomes really difficult and laborsome to try to connect with God. Think about it. The most difficult and boring and empty seasons of my prayer life have been times when I didn't have anything to pray about. I would just kneel down at the beginning of the day and I would pray, God, I need you to get me through the day, and I need your help with this and this and this. And I honestly felt like at the end of it, I felt like God was probably sitting in heaven saying, you need me for what? What are you doing? What do you need my help with? You're not even trying. The same has been true in my study of the scriptures, that it becomes empty and it doesn't help whenever I'm not actually progressing, when I'm not actually moving towards my purpose. But it's the richest when I desperately need something every day, whenever I open the Word and I'm like, I need wisdom from these pages. I need help from God today because I'm trying to do something big and something important with my life today. And James seems to say that sitting down in the road while trying to connect with a moving, living, breathing God is kind of a dead task. He continues in James chapter 2, verse 17. He says, so you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Just believing something is true isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. Believing that this stuff is true about you and about God, and believing there's a path, and knowing that you have a purpose, it doesn't do you any good if you don't do something with it. Take some steps. Start walking. Is it possible that the biggest problem you're facing right now when it comes to faith is that you're not doing the things you know to do? Well, Drew, I don't know everything I need to do. I know. I don't know everything I need to do, but you do know some stuff that you need to do, and I'm just asking, are you doing it? Have you started doing the thing? Have you started moving into the 30 feet that your headlights allow you to see? You will not enter into your why, though, by sitting down at a fork in the road and saying, God, I hope you show up and tell me which way to go. He's a God who moves with us. He's a God who never stops moving, and we connect the most to Him when we move too, when we progress too, when we start walking. James says it another place in his letter here. In chapter 4, he actually says, come near to God, and He will come near to you. But he makes it very clear the onus is on us. The first steps are on us. It is on us to start walking. Hey, I hope this encouraged you today. I hope it helped you in some way. And if it did, please like the video, comment. Let's have a conversation about this in the comments below. And then subscribe to the channel. We would love to have you around in the future too.